Hello. All right. Tell me where you're from if you are joining us. Welcome to Paint, Flowers, and More with Megan. And let's look at a few things that we're going to do today. We are going to paint hearts. It's almost Valentine's Day, so we are going to enjoy some hearts. And they're very easy. But I wanted to look at my supplies. So today I have just a round brush. It's a number 8, I think. It could be a 6. I can't really tell. Round brush. I have a number 2 pencil. And I have also, I have no idea what this is, but this is called a mop, and normally I use a blue one of this. This is just some off-brand, I think it's squirrel hair or something, I'm not really sure. It's really soft. It's one of my favorite ones, as you can tell. Well loved. Haven't used it in a while, so that should be interesting. I have my Uniball Signo 207 Bold pen, which is completely waterproof if it's dry. And then I have a white marker. This white marker is called a Posca pen, and it is from Japan, and it is one of my favorite. It's basically a paint pen, and we might play with that just a little bit, okay? So I've got those things for us today, and I wanted to talk about paint. So one of the things about paint is that you do not have to have fancy paint. This is actually a cheaper paint palette from Michaels. So it is the larger wells, that's what these are called. And you can do whatever you want to with them. And you can tell they're a little used. This came off of it, of course, because I broke this. So I am going to get rid of this and not use it. I have some paper towels with me. All right. And I thought we'd do something really easy today. So I'm going to put this right over to the side here. And I know you can't see it, but I'm going to mix my paint right here. So hopefully you can see it a little bit. Being on the mode like that, it's hard to see. So I also wanted to talk about, like, today, this is just regular cardstock. There's nothing fancy about this paper at all. So it's cardstock cut up into a rectangle. I have a whole lot of it already pre-cut this way. So one of the things that I like to do, you'll notice that I have this whiteboard behind here. Well, that whiteboard is just basically a dry erase board, and that I have taped my paper to. So this is just regular masking tape. This is generic masking tape, by the way. It is not very sticky at all. And so I tape it down, and it peels up really, really easy. So that's what this is. And I tape it to my board because I don't like it warping. So that's what we're going to do. So like I said, I just want to play with some hearts today. Nothing serious. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill this up with hearts real quick. So, you know, there's not much to say about a heart other than, you know, that's where the heart grows, right? So I am just coming in here and I am going to make some hearts. Now, you don't have to make as many as me. You can make as little as possible. I just wanted to fill my page up with hearts. Now, I may not get to all of these hearts, but I have this plan in my head of what I want us to do with these hearts. We are going to explore water and watercolor because, well, watercolor does watercolor, right? Like, you have to have water. So I wanted to just play with that. So nothing really crazy there, just draw a few hearts. That's it. But I wanted to go over a few techniques. So I have my handy dandy spray bottle here, and I'm going to spray my paint. Now this paint has not been used in a long time, so I'm going to double spray it. And do you see how glossy it's getting? Some of my, like, you want it to be glossy because you don't want it to have pits in it, right? So a lot of people, when they're starting out, they want a whole lot of paint and they don't activate it, and that's really important. All right, so I have got that, and you see how, I mean, it's liquidy. It's liquidy. That's what we're going for. Okay, so I have some water over here to the side so you don't have to see it, but it's sort of clean. I don't ever have anything clean, so, but it's sort of clean. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to start with a heart with water only. So I'm painting this water only. Now, normally I use this with watercolor paper, and I can already tell it's different. Do you see how it's changing colors? Watercolor paper, it would not have done that. So that means that this paper is soaking in this water. So let's just play. I'm going to get a little bit of this red, and I'm going to put it in there. And do you see how it's not bleeding very good? That's because the water has soaked in to the paper. Now that's what this is all about. This is an experiment. I wanted to show what it would be like to not paint on watercolor. And I'm going to just fill this in right here. Okay. So nothing special there. One of the things of watercolor is that we like to, I'm going to wipe it off. I always wipe it off before I put it in my water. Is I want to, what am I trying to say here? I don't have a clue. Keep our water clean. And that's why I always wipe off. So I'm going to put more water on this. So do you see how it's changing colors? I don't know if you can see that it's changing colors. So I'm going to now pile water on here. Like, I want to be able to see the water standing on this piece of paper. Okay, I am flooding it basically. I'm going to take the same red and I'm going to see what it does. Now that's what I was going for. I really wanted to see it do that right there. So I'm going to let that sit. We're going to see what happens. But it's already buckling the paper. And that's one of the things on a new watercolorist that get really annoyed fast, is because the paper does weird things. So I do suggest that you use watercolor paper, honestly. I think it works better. You won't get so frustrated. So I'm going to do this one like I did that one over here. So I'm just going to paint it. Now this is called painting wet and wet, because you know the paper is wet and so is the actual watercolor, right? Wet and wet, wet and wet. All right, now leave in the comments if you like what I'm doing and you like hearts. It's nice and easy. Okay, so now I'm going to do a couple other things. I'm just going to fill this up. Watercolor is nothing but layers. So I think I'm going to go to pink next. Okay. I like that color. Now this is wet on dry. Okay. So I'm going to come in here to dry and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Do you see how I have a little bit more control of the actual paint? And I want you to also notice I'm still using this big brush for this little stuff. Okay, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to just do that. Now, do you all also notice I'm not being too picky about staying inside the lines? And I'm also not painting it like one at a time. I'm just kind of scribbling. That's a key thing. Like, you should do that. I think I'm going to go with light pink on this. So this palette has this bright fluorescent pink in here, and I am going to use that for these little ones. And I'm going to just put it down. Now the thing about these little ones, look at that. That's 1 and 2, 1 and 2. I'm not painting too much. And do you see how I always kind of dab a little bit? Well, that dabbing is just giving me more pigment down there, which is something that we could talk about, is that the pigment in a cheaper palette, a color palette, it has more filler in it. And well, the problem with that is that that's why it doesn't last as long. The color's not as good. So one of the things I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to try to combine two colors with this. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to See that black stuff that's popping up? That's because my water is dirty and it's picking up some of that. That's kind of gross. Yeah, keeping it real over here. Okay, so I am going to take a orange and I'm going to put it over here. Notice it's not bleeding very well because, I mean, I'm telling you, this exercise on watercolor paper, which we might do next because it is completely different. And then I'm going to take that pink. I like that pink color a lot, and I'm going to put it over here. And I am going to see if I can't combine them. Now, see, I've got a perfect 2-color heart, and you see it's starting to do that. Starting to bleed a little bit, but I want to make it really bleed. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take some water, just clean water, and I'm going to dip it right there in the middle of that line. Do you see how it's changing it already for me? It's bleeding it for me. And because it's sitting on top of the paper, I can come in here and very lightly, like Bob Ross says, as light as a whisper. And you just barely move it together. And that's what's going to create this real pretty transition color. I like that a lot, actually. So let's try that again. Let's try it differently. Let's take some orange again, and I'm going to put it on this side. Now, this is dry, right? So I'm doing watercolor on dry. All right, and I've got that. Okay, and now I'm going to try my pink. I'm going to get a little bit more, and I'm going to put it over here. Now, it seems to be doing a little bit more, but I probably have a little bit more water in my brush. But it's sort of doing that thing. So I'm going to take, again, what did I do? I'm taking clean water and I'm going to plop it down right there in the center. And do you see how it's making those little flood lines? Some people can't stand those little lines. I think they add a little bit of texture. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little bit more than I did over here. I'm going to see if I can't move some of this pink into this orange. So what's happening is that, I mean, it's basically mixing colors on the paper for me. So a lot of times I see that people are mixing colors over here, but you don't have to. That's kind of what's so great about watercolor, is that it can sit on top of each other. All right, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go back to some red. I'm going to go to red. Boy, that is really red. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to just go into some red. All right, now that is Valentine's red, right? I'm going to go ahead and create this one that way too. Now, do you see how this one was really dark, but this is like the second pass, right? Like, so basically what I'm saying is that it's lighter because I don't have. Now, do you see how I am able to, you're seeing my strokes? One of the things that you're seeing my strokes is that it's drier, okay? And that's why you're seeing layer after layer. All right. Now, on this half, these three, let's add some red and pink together. So I'm gonna make this one wet. Notice my water is a little bit dirty. I'm gonna add my red to 1/2, okay? And then I'm gonna add this pink to it, and let's see what happens. Now, that's nice. Now, one of the things that's happening already is that it's blending for me because it's such a small space with a lot of water. And that's what's making that. Whereas these big ones, it was harder for the water to just sit there. So I'm going to do that with this pink one now. So here's my pink. Notice I'm going to color that whole thing in with pink. Then I'm going to go get my red, and I'm going to come in here and just add a little bit of dots. Let's see what happens with that when it dries. All right, and then I'm going to take this one over here, and I'm going to take that pretty red, I don't know, it's kind of pink, isn't it? I'm going to add that pink red here. And I'm going to add that red. Let's see what they look like together. Now that red overpowered that magenta red because I went from my palette over here to directly over here. Whereas when I did this maroon red, this pinky red, I didn't do that. So I'm going to come over here to my palette, get some of that color and put it down. And see what happens. Now that's a pretty color. That's a very pretty color. Okay, so I've done one layer here, but now I want to do a few other things to show you a few things because we have a few more minutes and you know, this is a little boring to me. I don't like boring. So let's come up here to this one. And I still think I'm going to use this big brush. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. This is the same color that I'm going to get right here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to add just a little bit more to it. Same thing for this one. This one here has actually like grown. Don't you love my English? But do you see how it's got a ring around it? So that's one of the things that's happening when you get cardstock and it's not supposed to have water on it. So I'm going to just outline that one. Okay. So this one I just outlined on the side. This one I did a little bit more, and this one I did everywhere. Okay. Now let's come down here to that next one. We got a pinky. And I can already tell that this is a cheaper color because I can see some of the granulars, the pigment of stuff. But you know, for practice, this is so fine. Nobody says that we have to be like crazy expensive paint. It's not necessary, especially to learn. So right now I'm going over the same color twice. The same colors that I've been using. So that's what this is. Now this one has actually some white in it. So it's a little bit more light already. And white in watercolor is basically an opaque paint. Do you know what that means? Well, opaque means you can't see through it. Watercolor is supposed to be transparent so you can see through it. This is where a smaller brush would work a little bit better, but that's okay. All right, and now I'm going to take this one. Now this is my two-toned. I'm going to take some orange and I'm going to come over here and put it there, and I'm going to take my pink and I'm going to put it on there. And you barely can tell, can't you? Okay. Let's take this. This is nice, and you know, I just wanted I wanted to have a very easy project where you didn't have to have special supplies, because you don't have to have the special supplies. You can use what you have. Now, I like that. I really like this red color. That is really Valentine's-y. So, notice I get bigger here. Now, that was a very thick stroke, but what if I have this brush and I can't do you see that little point there? But if you hold it up and down really light and you barely touch, look how thin. And do y'all see how I did not go all the way around it? I did a few places because I wanted to have a little bit more control. You don't have to go all the way around something every single time. It's just not necessary. So I'm going to do that over here. Now, notice that was watered down, so you can't see it as much. Now, that's turning pretty interesting. I like how that is different. So, here we go. I'm going to take that and that. And you see how it's going only where the water is? I think that's cool because it's drying so fast. So I'm just plopping down a little bit of color in that area. And you see how it's staying in that area? That's pretty neat. I'm going to take my red and go all around here. Okay. I'm really liking these down here. So that means these needs work. So I'm going to do something different now. I'm going to add some colors to this. So actually, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, let's add some red dots. Let's get in here, and I love polka dots. So I'm going to come in, and because this paper is not letting, my paint is just sitting on top of it. It's barely soaking in on top there. I'm going to let that sit. Okay, what if I do this over here? I'm going to take the same color now, all right? And this time I'm going to go add lines. I like how that's a thick one and then they get a little bit thinner. I think that's neat. Now, I really like how that's looking like that. I think I need a smaller brush. So I have a million little brushes in here, so I'm just going to pick one. This is what is this? A 10/0 Princeton Select Short Liner is what it's called. And it's going to give me a little bit more control. I'm going to get me some more red. Now, I have found that when you go to a smaller brush, you start really digging into your paint. Like, it's like, ew. This is where things start to get real weird. So if you like to mix colors, I would mix colors with a bigger brush. All right, and let's see. I'm going to come out here. And literally, now do you see how that got dry? So we just add another one. I still wipe it off. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get this darker pink. Now I'm coming from here because I want it lighter than the palette. That's why. And I'm going to just do wee, wee. Notice I loosened up a little bit. Went outside the box. We'll see how that looks. I'm going to take this really dark red and I'm going to come out and do it. I kind of like it when I go outside the box like that. I think that's a little bit more interesting. I think I'm going to take some of this red though. With wee, wee. Now I like that. This one, I'm going to add little dots. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit more red. And I'm going to go. Now I like that. I like how dry that was too. So basically I didn't have enough water on my brush, but I love the way that turned out. Now with this orange one, what if I took some orange, pure, like I don't have much, and I come in, can't see it very much. What if I make it darker? So I'm going to go to one of the darker orangey yellows and add to it. Now this I actually was mixing colors, so I actually took two colors and put it on my board. And I only use the board like that because it, oh, now that's better. You can see it a little bit better there. Now, what if I added some dots here? Not bad. Now, do you see it's getting a little, what's the word? Not perfect. Dry. That's when I am coming in and I'm adding more paint to my brush. So now I'm really going at it for this. This is big polka dots, small polka dots, little polka dots. How small can I do it? That's pretty cute. All right, I'm going to come in with this red one here. Let's go into some red. Let's do my wee. I like that. I like that double line too. We're going to do that over here. Like that. Over here, I'm going to come in, and now I've already made one. I think I'm going to make a pink one now. I like it. I like these over and over again. Now this one doesn't have orange in it, but I think I'm gonna make some. And see how I'm making it bigger, and it still looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Sometimes it's better to just loosen up and let it go where it wants to than going, oh, I messed up and this shouldn't touch each other. You know, you gotta go with it. It's all right. It's not that big of a deal, people. It's really not. Ooh, I like that. I think you see a pattern here that Megan likes, don't you? I think I really like lines going all over it. So here I am. Now which ones doesn't have it? So that one doesn't have it, that one. All right, so we need to do that. I'm going to take some orange. I like that. Now that one I'm going to take pink. Notice I did not add that little light pink to any of the outlines. It won't show up very well. Let's just do it to prove it. So I'm going to come over here. Oh, on top of that orange, that was pretty. But do you see how it's hard to see? All right, now I am going to add, I want to see a little bit more shading in here. So do you see how I'm messy and adding just a little bit of shading to a side of the heart? You don't have to go crazy here. Ew, did not like those two together. Not there. Let's go back. Let's go on top of it with this color. You see how it toned it down a little bit? All right, now I'm gonna dry this and I'm gonna show you all what I can do with it after I dry it. So let me find my dryer. Hopefully without, you know. All right, so this is my heated tool. Let's dry it real quick. And remember, I had the white and the black area. This is turning into a longer lesson, and it's just simple hearts. I've got to get better at that. Okay, so here we go. I've dried this. Because the water soaks up the paper much, it might take a little bit. Also with watercolor, it fades once it's dry. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Let's see. All right, so here we are. And now let's take this black right here. And let's wipe this off so I don't get it all over me. All right, black Uniball Signo 207 bolt. Now I'm touching this. There's one down here that's kind of wet. I'm going to show you what happens. So I like to sketch them out. You see how it's making a bigger, that's saying it's not dry, it's not dry. All right, so I'm just coming in here, but I want you to see what a black outline can do to your designs. Now, some people might say that this black outline is like a crutch. Yeah, it is, probably. Now, this paper is wet, so it's kind of balling up right there. But it would not have done that if it was on watercolor paper. So that's something for you to know if you get like annoyed. Paper has a lot to do with this. It really does. So on a few of these, I'm going to come in and let's add some doodles to it. All right, I like that. 1, 2. Let's come over here and let's add little hash marks. Now, okay, I like that. This we're going to add straight across. I'll tell you, I'm telling you, I do not like this paper to do this with. Now, I may try to do this paper with something else, as in like, I could try regular painting with this paper and see if it does okay. Which it might. It really might. And do you see how when I'm doing this, I'm not even on a dot? That's what doodling is. Doodling is imperfect lines all over the place going, yay! All right, now I like what's happening here. I'm loosening up, as you can tell. I like that. Now, I have added some of these lines, right? And I think I'm going to add some. Now, I told you I'd use the Posca pens. Now, I absolutely love these pens. So they are, they're wet paint markers. You have to shake them really good. I'm going to test it up here. And I'm going to come in. Now, as you can tell, I really, really like polka dots. So you don't have to do polka dots. But what if I did bigger polka dots? One of the things when you do polka dots, make sure some of them go off the actual object. Because otherwise you kind of look a little bit, what's the word for it? Amateurish. So I need to get it down. So there you go. All right. And now I'm going to come in and go. All right. And I think I'm going to come in. Now see, that's wet. Did you see that? So it's getting it gray. Bad move, Megan. Bad move. Gonna add a little bit of white right there. I like that. And in here, I could add a white dot in the middle of these big ones, which I like. All right. So, a little bit for everybody, right? Just a little bit. Oh, I like that. That was good. All right, so that's my lesson today. One of the things that I want you to know is that when you pull paint off of or tape off of something, first off, you should make sure that your paper is completely dry. Now, we did not go to the edges, so this is dry. Second, you always start at the very, very edge and you pull out. All right, now, if you liked this lesson, join me next Tuesday. I plan to go live every Tuesday at the same time, same place, every time. And I will put the replays up on YouTube. Last week, it got deleted accidentally. Yay, that was my fault. Now, the key is always to pull away from the paper and you're very close to the paper so you don't pull and peel the paper. So, I want you to do that, and I will, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, that would be great too because you'll see more of these. But let's zoom in real quick and let's show you what you've got here. So isn't that pretty cute? Tracy, I knew you'd love it. I knew you'd love it. And I want to see what you make. Like, I know you can do this. All right, guys. So, I'll see you next week. And, happy Valentine's Day!